Righto, so I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm bald. But how's this? I shaved my head, obviously. There's a hair on the front here that, there it is there. It's that long, like it's that long. How do I, being bald, on the front here, where the worst bit is, get a hair that's that long when I shave my head? Anyway, cars. Righto, so we're going to get stuck back into this Jag. Well, I'm going to go and drive around in the truck. Leith's going to get stuck into the Jag. Okay, so the heads are going to come off. The heads are coming off after we put the roller rockers on due to the fact that the old heads that are in there were just too worn. The valves started sinking. The tips were protruding too far on the valves.
Well, not enough actually. The tips were worn, yeah.
Tips were worn, which means the roller rockers chattered and all the rest of it. We could recondition the heads that are on these cast iron heads. You could go through and recondition them, which would have worked fine, but for $1,100 I end up with a set of Procomp aluminium heads. Okay, so Leith's going to do a quick rundown on what these are, and then from there he's going to get himself set up over there on the bench, and we're going to run through them, what they are, what he's found. Some people don't like Procomp heads because they're cheaper, but we'll see what they're like. I've heard good things, and I haven't really heard that many bad things actually, except for people saying they're cheap. And being cheap isn't an excuse, because I'm cheap and I'm awesome. Alright, so what are you going to be looking for, buddy?
When I pull them apart, we'll discuss that when I get to them, but what we'll mainly gain out of this is a little bit more compression, because we have smaller chambers, so it will up the compression a little bit. We've got heaps bigger valves. We've gone from 1.92 to 2.02 on the intakes, and 1.5 to 1.6 on the exhaust. And the standard runners on these are like 150, 160 cc's. We've gone to 190 cc intake runners, and they're just a lot better flow characteristics than a standard cast iron head. Now, in saying that they are cheap Procomp heads, yes they are, but they're only cheap because they're a mass-produced thing. They're just on a factory line. They just get passed through. One person chucks the shit in the way they go. There's no quality control. Where these are cast is basically the same place that a lot of the really good branded heads are cast as well. So the casting is not really the issue. When they're mass produced, they don't double check to make sure that the valves seat properly. They're probably not cleaned properly when they're put together. The spring pressure would probably not be checked. So I'll strip these apart. I'll make sure that the valves seat properly. I will take away any little casting burrs inside the ports or in the bowl area as well. I'll check the spring pressures and just make sure that they're so if they did that at the factory, these would cost just as much as any other cylinder head. So I'm actually doing the work that they should be doing by being a mass-produced thing. So I'll be doing my own quality control on them basically, and then they're just as good as anything else. The heads are actually copied off a lot of the really good branded cylinder heads as well. So the ports are the same, the chambers are the same. There's not much in them. They're still going to work just as good as one of the heads once I've touched them up and gone through them. So,
because I don't know if any of you guys watch, there's a show called Engine Masters. Roadkill with Motor Trend have a show called Engine Masters, and the little things they go through on teaching you about match porting manifolds, whether it makes much difference. All those little things that they show you on Engine Masters is what Leith's going to go through for his quality control, what he calls it, which is match porting, so that the gasket doesn't cover the inlet hole and block flow.
Yeah, so I'll set the intake gasket, well, I'm showing on this one, I'll set the intake gasket over the face here. I'll line up the bolt holes there, and I'll just run a scriber around. I'll put some engineer's glue on there, I'll run the scriber around there, and I'll do the same on the intake manifold. So I get the intake ports on here exactly the same size as what they are on the manifold, and that just gives you a nice, even, smoother flow. Because if if the holes on, like the intake ports on your manifold are heaps smaller than the heads, you're wasting the heads by having a small intake, and vice versa. If the intake's heaps bigger than the actual cylinder head, you're just going to be hitting a wall on each side, and it just turbulates the air a lot. And if the air has to turn around, basically around a 90-degree angle, the air can actually go supersonic, which is actually not good for a cylinder head flow. So
But yeah, so that's a start on what we're going to put together with this. So through this process, putting them on, he's just going to point out little bits and pieces, a little bit of horsepower here and a little bit there.
Yeah.
It's just going to really make a difference.
Once we get the cylinder heads off that one, we'll do a side-by-side comparison from the cast iron ones to the aluminium ones, so you can see the difference. And I know for a fact that this thing will go a hell of a lot better with the aluminium heads compared to the cast iron heads. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It'll make everything better. Yeah, that's just.
And I'm buying a 4-bolt 350 tomorrow for the. Well, you can't see it, but there's a jet boat just out there. So yeah, there's another Chevy getting built soon. So it comes with roller rockers. There's another set of roller rockers that come with this. Got all sorts of bits and pieces, and there's 3 different manifolds coming with this other engine I'm buying. So there's a heap of Chevy stuff that we'll be playing with soon as well.
If one of those manifolds is better than the one that's on the Jag, it's going on.
I think the Victor Junior one is actually a better manifold.
Victor Junior one might be a little bit tall for this.
Yeah, we've got a clearance problem with this to the bonnet.
Plane is going to take away from what we want with download torque. So the single plane will be good for the boat.
Yep.
Because once it's, they do need a bit of grunt to get out of the water, but it's going to be sitting at high RPM for a constant, for actually quite a while. So we'll just, the single plane might be good for the other one. And I'll build it to suit that. It'll be probably a solid cam in it, not a hydraulic. And I'll probably just port the standard heads for it, or I'll use the ones off the 283 because I know my mate had them recoed when we had that 283.
The motor that's getting built for the boat will be eventually in the 1-tonner that's out the back, and then the blown motor will probably end up in the boat. But in saying that, I've got another one that I'm buying in the next week or so that's also set up for a Chev, but not a boat, but it's you should see this thing. Anyway, righto. Captain's going to get stuck into getting this apart. I'm going to go and drive around in the truck, and when he's got it apart, we'll get both sets of heads on the bench, show you the cast iron ones, the different sizes of the valves, and go from there. Righto, Jag's apart. So he's got the heads off, as you can see, heads and manifold and stuff off. He found that one of the heads had actually blown in between the 2 cylinders. See how that's, see on that one there how it's sort of complete, whereas that one there has been firing. You can see it's a bit darker between the 2 cylinders. So
yeah, I've also had water going through in a few spots. You can see where it's starting to pass through there as well.
Remember on that last video where I was worried about the temperature coming up, and that'd be why, because there's hot air coming out of the cylinder into the cooling system, but just a little bit. So, but other than that, yeah, so you see the other heads are off here. We'll set up and we will show you the difference between the 2 heads before we put it all back together. In amongst the stuff, because this is that engine that I showed you in the dark, we're going to go through all this stuff properly and show you what to look for when you buy an engine that's in 1 trillion pieces. This manifold is one of the manifolds that come, and Leith's just done some research. It is
it's an Edelbrock Performer EPS, which is basically just the next version up from the standard Edelbrock Performer. Supposedly in the reviews, like you extra 7 horsepower and extra 5 foot-pound of torque over the standard Edelbrock Performer. It is about 5 mil higher, but it's actually got like a lot better runner volume and better radiuses and stuff like that. As you can see, the difference between that one there and that one there.
There's another Performer just here.
Yeah, that's a real early spread ball one.
So you can see the differences. See at the rear of the manifold there, it's a bit tighter. Yeah, but we will do a bit more of a comparison, and that one there is a Victor Junior, a single plane one, which will go on the boat. So, but yeah, so a little bit more horsepower, but it is a little bit higher, and he's got the tape measure in his hand there because we are very close to the bonnet in the Jag. So I think over time, as the engine mounts sag, it'll fit better.
Or against the bonnet,
We'll have a look at these heads. So Leith's gone through, and he has the 2 heads sitting here. We spoke about the one that had blown the head gasket in between the cylinders. Yeah, the motor's good in it. Okay, I'll start there. The motor's good in the car. There's no big lip on the bore. You can't see anything in there that sees that any cylinders are down on anything.
No, it seems fine, and there's no, like where all the ring marks are, they're all in the same place, so there's no broken rings, there's nothing like that. There's no lip. There's no massive amounts of carbon around the edge. None of the pistons are pitted or eaten away from anything. So
all the bottom end seems to be good at this stage. So we're going to run with that. And it did run well, even with that slightly blown head gasket, which could have happened. Oh, it's been done for a while.
It would have been like that for a long time.
But you could hardly tell it was blown, so it was very slight.
Well, but we couldn't tell.
Yeah, we couldn't tell. But anyway, all right. So anyway, all right, back to these heads. So he's got, this is our old cylinder head, obviously, and this is our new one. So you can see the valve size is slightly larger. So that's our new valve. Okay, they're the old ones obviously, and it's just...
So the old ones are 1.94 inches, the new ones are 2.02 inches. So that's 80th hour difference in the intake valves, and the old exhaust valves are 1.5 inch, the new ones are 1.6, so I've got a 100th hour difference in the exhaust, which is, you know, it does make a fair bit of difference.
So, Leith brought up a good point before with these heads. Now, these have been sitting for a long time. Now, in 2005, Procomp changed their casting of the heads. So they may have got the name for cheap heads, or were not overflowing well for the pre-05 heads. These heads are a 2011 head. You can see the date just there, okay? And they've been sitting a long time. Now, when they put them together, you can see the grease on that valve. So it was, even if you weren't gonna check everything and go through it, he said the stuff with these sitting in a workshop, the swarf and little bits of stuff that would land in that grease and then end up through the guides and wrecking stuff. So if you'd buy an old set of heads like this that are they're brand new, you can't just put them on. You do have to check that grease, make sure any dirt and that's out. Leith has also found a big horsepower upgrade. He's going to run through now what he found and what he's going to do.
Okay, so in the ports here, it's probably a little bit hard to see because I've got a really crap light, but you can see there, that's basically just a right angle from there, because when these are machined, like when they're cast from the factory, they cast them for the smaller valves, and then it's only the insert machine that reams that out bigger for the bigger insert. So that's the old machining there. So I'll give that a nice radius and I'll clean up the whole bowl area in the intake port, and the same with the exhaust here. There's a massive step just there. So cleaning all that up and basically just making the insert, so the insert actually protrudes a little bit from the port there, so I'll just tidy all that up, and that will make a big difference, because when the air comes through here, it's not going to want to follow the radius of the port, it's actually going to just want to go straight towards the valve itself. So once you radius that and you get a nice flow, it does make a lot of difference. So
perfect. So that'll clean those ports up and make them flow better, which is awesome. And are you going to touch the exhaust port at all, or the inlet port?
Exhaust port I won't touch at all. I may just get rid of a few little casting dags if there is any that needs to be taken away.
One there, yep.
But that's not, you know, that's neither here nor there.
Yep. What do you think?
The chambers I will radius the outside of the chamber there, because like any sharp spots there is going to create a hot spot which can actually cause, you know, pre-ignition. So I'll be putting a radius on the edge of the chamber, and then yeah, that'll pretty much be it and port it. But you can actually see the difference in the chamber size. You see how that's basically just a big half circle, like big half moon there, and these are what's called a kidney shape, so you can see how much smaller that is around there. So that's 75 or 76 cc depending on the year model. These are 64 cc, so that should bump us from probably 8.5 to 1 to probably nearly 10 to 1 compression, which is going to make a really big difference. Like these cylinder heads alone, well, even just that up in compression can be good for around 30 horsepower. So between that, the valve size, the rockers, all that sort of stuff, from when we first did this, we're probably gaining 100 horsepower with the cylinder heads and the rockers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so by the time you add up that we've done the 1.6 rockers, which would have added horsepower, we're going to put that other manifold on, which will bring us up a little bit, even, you know, 10, 20 horsepower here and there, and then bumping the compression from 8.5 or 9.5 to 10.5, that'll make a big difference. And then the bit of porting and stuff that he does to these heads on top of that, you know, as he said, we might be up around the 100 horsepower gain, which will be a massive difference. And a good gearbox too that shifts really well will actually make a big difference. So this is on our inlet side. So what he's looking for here is where the gasket, see how the gasket sits, you pointed out, Lee?
Yeah, so well, if I sit the gasket where it's actually going to sit when it's bolted down, so I'll line up the bolt holes there, you can actually see how much material is there. So I'll do the same on the intake manifold as well, and see how close it is. But
cool. Match porting.
Yeah, match porting. So I'll basically put some machinist blue on there, I'll scribe around that, and then I'll actually port that out so it's all the same size as the intake. And then that way, yeah, we'll get a heap more flow, and even that's, you know, that's good for quite a few horsepower as well.
A piece from here and a piece from there.
Makes a difference. So.
That's it. So you've got to look at all the little pieces add up. You can't just look at a big picture where I'm going to throw a turbo on and you make a big bit of horsepower. If when you put that turbo on, you actually do every step properly and bring it up to each other. So yeah, as you guys can probably tell, I'm pretty excited about getting these aluminium heads for a car guy that grew up with cast iron heads and all that sort of stuff, and steel Yellow Terror heads. They were the bomb. But getting a good mate of mine and Leith's, Matt, back in the day, got a set of Brodex heads for his 350 Chev, and that was that thing was an animal, and it just, you know, it set the want list, I suppose. But anyway.
And just to show how to check that the valves are seating, so you get a bit of bearing glue and you put it on the actual valve itself. Just give it a nice thin coat on there. That was probably a bit much, but it'll be fine. It's just to show. So then, you make sure the valve doesn't turn when you do this, so because then you'll see any high and low spots. If you keep turning it, you're basically just going to get the high spot marked all the way around. So, okay, so you get the bearing glue now on the seat. We wipe off the valve. And then we do it again.
Can you remember the first set of valves we ever done in high school?
No.
We had a, I'm pretty sure you were in the same class. We had a high school teacher, the gym teacher, had a...
Yeah, 400 Chev,
yeah,
57.
Yeah, it was like a two-door wagon thing.
Yeah, it was a Nomad, 57
Yeah,
Nomad.
Nomad. He ended up dying or something, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
heart attack.
He had
Teacher.
The gym teacher had a heart attack, yeah. It was a healthy school, that one.
Okay, so like I did, I just wiped the valve off. The bearing glue is on the seat, so then a few more taps and pop him out, make sure not to check the seat. And then you'll see, you can actually see where the blue is touching all the way around. So that's actually pretty good. So that's not bad at all. But even once I get it together, I will vacuum test them as well, just to make sure that they are seating 100%. But that's a pretty good indication that the seats are round and the valves have been cut well. So even though they are brand new valves, and they are stainless valves as well, so that's a good thing. But yeah, so I'll do that all through them. I'll port them. I'll check all the valves and seats, match port it, and they'll be good to go on. So a couple of days of buggerising around, but be well worth it.
Should be midweek next week. We should be driving this thing again, but it's registered now, so I'm pretty keen to. It would have been fine. We could have kept driving it, but what's the point? You know, like they reckon they're going to ban gasoline, so we need to drive what we can while we can. But yeah, no. So the first set of heads that we ever played with together back in the day was a set of Chev heads, very similar. They were cast iron ones, but
yeah, double hump fuelies.
Long time ago now. We've known each other since we were about 13, I suppose. So yeah, he's always been a dick.
Yeah.
Righto, finally back to the workshop. Captain has been extremely busy with the porting of these heads. The first thing we'll point out is when we looked at the heads the other day, like there's a minor lip there compared to what was in the other cylinder head, like where that lip is there, okay? But then when you look at this end, there's a huge lip again. Like the casting is...
It's just core shift, so...
Yeah, like it's the castings are good and they will flow all right, but the difference between each valve and stuff, having this clean up. So, all right, so let's have a look what he's done. So that there is an original port, unported, untidied up, and that one there's been cleaned up. In the back of the bowl there, taken out smoothed out that just there rolls around that corner now, compared to, you can see there.
Probably the worst one there.
But yeah, you can see where it sort of just drops straight off. I think you guys can see that. But then when you look in that one, it just rolls down around the corner. Right, so how do you know where to stop, Leith? Like, obviously you can keep chewing into this and make this massive. Where do you know where to stop and what are you looking for?
In the bowl area, you don't really want to go any bigger. You know, you want to leave a little bit between the seat and the inner of the insert, like the idea of the insert. And you want to make sure that you're not actually like dipping away. You want it to be able to go straight down from the insert down. Like if you end up having a scallop out there and a scallop out there, you're just ruining the head. But most of the power is in the bowl area there, like cleaning up all your casting marks and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, trying to get it as far out towards the seat as you can without touching the seat. In the actual port itself, like in the actual runner, there's no point in doing it unless your intake manifold is going to support the flow of the cylinder heads, because you're just going to go backwards. So But in saying that, it is just practice and it's feel for it. It's not, anyone can port cylinder heads, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just experience and know how to do it. Like, I could spend days on these. That's just a quick clean up, you know, a couple of hours, just cleaning them up and just trying to get the port as symmetrical as possible.
This is not a big horsepower build. This is my daily, just to tidy up.
Like, I could spend hours just, you know, cleaning the ports up with a sandpaper roll and all that sort of stuff. So you use a burr first, like a carbide burr, one of those suckers there, just to get most of the material away, and then you use sandpaper rolls to smooth it out a little bit. And yeah, I could spend hours and hours with sandpaper rolls going through all that, but for what we're doing, you know, the extra hours involved isn't really worth it.
Last time he was talking about chamfering that edge, so you can see that there's a sharp edge, and I can run my finger and probably cut my finger on that, and you can see there, all he's done is just taken the edge off, and that's all he was talking about on that one. So, oh yeah, my sister's pregnant, so yeah, I'm going to be a dad again.
Oh, that was terrible.
All right, anyway. Happy with that?
That was not good at all.
Alright guys, so that's, I think we've covered pretty much everything on these heads. So Procomp heads, as far as I'm concerned, are fine. For the money, they're about half the price of like Edelbrock heads, or definitely cheaper than Brodex or something like that. There is a fair bit of time left, spent a couple of days so far. He's still got this head to do.
That was less than a day to do.
Okay, less than a day to clean up that one, so another day, yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, probably 4 to 5 hours really, because yeah, I had to deal with a lot of people yesterday.
Okay.
So I had a lot of customers come in, so it was, yeah, it wasn't too bad. Yeah. We're talking about the match porting side of it as well. All I've done there is just open those ports up so they're closest to the outside of the gasket. So that's, yeah, pretty close enough for what we're doing. And then, but if you look at this one here,
it's all pretty self-explanatory what goes on, but it is good to see it before you guys start.
And it is hard for me, because it is just second nature for me. It is actually hard to explain. Like, and you can see the overlap there. If I get that sitting in the centre, you can see the overlap on the edge there, and on this one as well. So I pretty much just scribed a line around there, and then just opened it up to that, and then radiused it in there, just so it makes a little bit of difference. But better to have a nice radius there than it hitting a square wall.
That's it, eh? Righto. Alright guys, hope you enjoy where we're heading with it, and yeah. And one last note too, we had an issue with the lady yesterday on a deposit for a car. So comes in, can I buy the car? Yes, no worries. Can't buy it till Monday. Can you hold it? Yep, no worries, put down a deposit, we'll hold on to it for you. But then comes back and wants the deposit back because she's found another car and she's going to go and buy that. Where do you guys stand on that? Do I keep that deposit and say, look, you know, I deleted all the ads and we've put the car away, I've turned people away, you know, but now you want your money back. What's the point of a deposit if you give it back? What is the world coming to? Anyway, all right guys, she's together. Righto, so it is all back together. New manifold, the rockers, everything, yeah. So next time you see this, it will be running. We'll do our comparisons from pre 1.6 offset rockers to offset rockers, and then compression heads, new manifold and stuff like that.
Just to correct you, they're not offset rockers. They are a bit higher ratio rockers. So 1.5 to 1.6 ratio, they're not offset. So there you go.
These are the discussions that I get all the time you guys don't see, just so as you know, it keeps me in line.
Well, a lot of times I don't correct you when you're filming, because I don't want to make you look like a knob, so
It's too bad I already look like a knob. Yeah. But I will say one thing, we're going to be doing Motor Monday, so I'm going to put him on the spot here. He's going to have to film and start doing stuff. So on a Monday, because there's a lot of machine work going on here, a lot of engines getting built. So you're going to do some filming, ain't you, Leith?
Yeah, okay.
There we go. Commitment from him. All right, guys. We will see you. The next video won't be this again. I've bought a heap of cars. So the next video will be running through just what I bought this month. It's crazy. All right. Chill.